I realized my family had already decided I didn't deserve what I built the moment my brother tried to walk into my office like he owned it. It was a Tuesday morning in London, the kind where the sky looked permanently grey and the city hummed with quiet ambition. I had just finished signing a contract that took me 15 years to earn when the receptionist called upstairs and said, "Your brother is here, and he says this building belongs to him now." I laughed at first because it sounded ridiculous, until I walked downstairs and saw my parents standing beside him, smiling like everything had already been decided. That was the moment I understood something brutal. They hadn't come to congratulate me. They had come to take what they believed was theirs. And what they didn't realize yet was that I had already anticipated their move weeks earlier. My name is Elena Brooks. I'm 36 years old and everything I own was built slowly, painfully, and completely on my own. I grew up in Manchester in a house where expectations were strangely uneven. My younger brother Daniel was always described as the dreamer. My parents loved that word. Dreamer meant creative, misunderstood, destined for something extraordinary. Meanwhile, I was the practical one. Practical meant reliable, responsible, and quietly expected to solve my own problems. When Daniel wanted to start a photography business at 19, my parents bought him a professional camera and funded a year of travel across Europe so he could find inspiration. When I asked for help paying my university housing deposit, my father told me independence builds character. So I worked nights in a supermarket, slept 4 hours a day, and graduated with a degree in data analytics that nobody in my family even attended the ceremony for. Over the years, I learned something that shaped my entire life. When people expect you to survive without help, you eventually become very good at surviving. I moved to London at 23 with 2 suitcases and exactly £1,200 in savings. I shared a tiny flat with 3 strangers and worked entry-level jobs in cybersecurity firms while studying certifications at night. My parents rarely asked how I was doing, but they called often to tell me about Daniel's projects. One month he was launching a photography blog, the next he was building a brand around travel documentaries. None of them lasted long. But my parents always insisted he just needed the right opportunity. 15 years later, that opportunity still hadn't arrived. But mine had. After years of relentless work, I started my own cybersecurity consulting company. It began small, just me and a laptop, helping companies protect their networks from data breaches. Slowly the contracts grew bigger. Startups became corporations. Corporations became international clients. Eventually my company expanded into an entire office building in Shoreditch. When the final purchase went through, I stood inside the empty lobby late at night, staring at the glass walls and polished floors, feeling something I had never felt before. Not borrowed success, not family support, not luck. Just the result of years of work nobody had seen. I posted one photo online that night. Just a quiet picture of the building lobby with the caption, "A long road but worth every step." I didn't tag my family, but somehow they found it anyway. 2 days later my mother called. Her voice sounded warm in that careful way she used when she was about to ask for something difficult. She told me Daniel had been struggling financially, that the pandemic had hurt his freelance work, that he needed stability. Then she said something that made the room feel smaller. "You have more than enough space now, Elena. Maybe it's time your brother joined the business." At first I thought she meant employment. I was even open to that idea. Daniel could work in marketing or creative production. But then my father took the phone and explained their real plan. Daniel should become co-owner of the company. Not because he had experience, but because family businesses should belong to the whole family. According to them, my success wasn't really mine. It was the result of the values they had raised me with, which meant the company should benefit Daniel as well. I didn't argue during that call. I simply listened. Because while they were explaining their logic, another thought quietly formed in the back of my mind. They still believed I was the quiet daughter who would eventually give in. Over the next few weeks their pressure increased. My mother sent long messages about loyalty and sacrifice. My father talked about fairness. Daniel posted vague comments online about big changes coming soon. Eventually, the pressure turned into something more aggressive. A lawyer's letter arrived claiming that because my parents had supported me emotionally throughout my life, they deserved partial ownership of the business as compensation. Their legal theory was absurd, but the intention was clear. They expected me to surrender before things became public. What they didn't know was that I had already prepared for exactly this situation. Years earlier, while building my company, I had structured every contract, every investment, every ownership document with extreme precision. I knew that family disputes destroy businesses faster than competitors ever could. So I created something my parents had never anticipated: a governance structure that placed ownership decisions under an independent board of advisors. Not family, not friends, professionals. The day my parents and Daniel walked into the office lobby demanding control of the company, they believed they had forced a confrontation. But the confrontation they imagined wasn't the one that actually happened. I invited them upstairs into the conference room where the board meeting was already in session. 3 advisors sat quietly at the table reviewing documents. Daniel's confidence faded the moment he realized strangers were involved. My father tried to continue his speech about family rights, but the chairman politely interrupted and asked a simple question. "Mr. Brooks, are you aware that this company has a formal governance board?" My father looked confused. Daniel looked nervous. The chairman then explained that any attempt to claim ownership without contractual basis would automatically trigger a legal review and public disclosure process designed to protect the company from hostile takeover attempts. In simple terms, if they continued pushing their claim, the entire situation would become part of the company's legal record and financial filings. For the first time since they arrived, my parents went quiet, because suddenly their argument about family loyalty had entered a world where logic mattered more than emotion. Daniel tried one last approach. He said he only wanted what was fair, that families should share success. I looked at him calmly and asked a question I had spent weeks preparing. "Daniel, how many hours have you worked in this company?" He didn't answer. "How many clients have you secured?" Still silence. "How many nights did you spend learning the systems that built this business?" The room remained completely still. Then I slid a folder across the table containing something simple: employment contracts. If Daniel wanted to be part of the company, he could apply like anyone else. Entry level. Probation period. Performance reviews. The power shift in that moment was almost physical. My parents realized they had misjudged everything. They thought I would surrender to avoid conflict. Instead, they had walked into a system where their arguments had no power. The meeting ended quietly. No shouting, no dramatic exit. Just the slow understanding that the story they had always told themselves about our family was no longer true. Months have passed since that day. My company continues to grow, expanding into new markets across Europe. Daniel never applied for the job. My parents occasionally send messages asking when we can move forward as a family. I don't respond with anger. I simply continue living the life I built. Because the real lesson wasn't about revenge. It was about control. For years, my family believed they controlled the narrative of my life. They believed the quiet daughter would always remain quiet. But the moment they tried to take what I built, they discovered something unexpected. Silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes it just means someone is planning their next move. And the most powerful revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something they can never take from you.